Throughout the past 15 weeks, I have had the pleasure of studying the art of teacher supervision and effectiveness through the University of Pittsburgh under the direction of Dr. Jerry Longo. These last few weeks have been challenging yet rewarding. Our coursework focused on two primary resources: Supervision that Improves Teaching and Learning by Susan Sullivan and Jeffrey Lance, as well as Implementing the Framework for Teaching and Enhancing Professional Practices by Charlotte Danielson. Although there have been a substantial amount of significances throughout the entire course, I would like to take a few moments to reflect upon my main takeaways from the course and how I've implemented them into my classroom throughout the past few years. We'll look at Charlotte Danielson's domain number 1, planning and preparation. In my classroom, over this last several years, I have offered my students student interest inventories at the beginning of the year. Now, my situation is a little bit unique. I have my students in 7th grade for Math 7. They follow me up to Math 8. And additionally, I may have some students twice per day in 8th grade, as they might take an algebra course with me. My student interest inventory looks significantly different for my 7th graders to my 8th graders. My 7th graders do not know who I am. They don't feel comfortable with me yet. They often give me general information about themselves. The fact that they might play sports, their clubs they're in, their friends, very basic information. However, my interest inventories for my 8th graders, they release a lot more information than I ever could have even imagined about my kids. In those letters that they write me and the information they give me, I have had students come out to me and disclose that they've attempted suicide in the past. Students that have not been on any of our radars. I have also had students disclose to me their sexual orientation that they have not told anyone else. I had one student last year tell me that she has come out to her family and friends, and her father has abused her for it. Not physically, but mentally, and has given her a very difficult time about that. Additionally, for planning and preparation, I do assignments with a twist frequently. When I had taught Algebra 3 in the past, I would give the students this worksheet. This worksheet is on graphing an ellipse, which most students don't find necessarily the most interesting on how to graph an ellipse. However, they do find it interesting when you offer them the opportunity to graph ellipses and make it into an art project. So if you notice, there are a lot of ellipses, which an ellipse is very similar to an oval. There are several different ellipses in this project, and they had to graph those. Additionally, moving on to domain 2, the classroom environment. Most recently, we found out that many of our students do not have the best home lives. We've known this for a number of years, but most recently, we've really had a firsthand based knowledge of learning about this. With everything going on in our society right now with COVID-19, we've been making phone calls home daily to parents, communicating with them, and often hearing some of the stories that they don't have power at their homes, they don't have computers, they don't have the resources available in order to complete online education. Makes it very difficult for us. So really, that makes it our job as educators even more important to offer a classroom environment that's safe and welcoming, because for many students that this is their only escape from their home life, to come to a school that's full of love and excitement and joy and educators that care about them. This past year, I've changed my classroom dynamics completely. It's been a little bit difficult for me to overcome some of the struggles because I have been traditionally a very organized teacher, but I've switched to flexible seating where I allow the students to pick their own seat depending on the day. And I have beanbag chairs, I have cushions, I have wobble stools, I have stools with wheels, I have traditional seating, I have video game rockers. I have so many different kinds of seating available in the classroom, and I allow my students to pick their own seats now. Initially, that was a little bit difficult for me as an educator to overcome, but now that I have become used to it, it's just second nature. Additionally, for our classroom environment, I offer my students an incentive for their behavior. That we have an outdoor classroom. It's a pavilion set up with tables and chairs and the equipment out there needed for our classroom. So we have an outdoor pavilion that I offer to my students as a reward for positive behaviors in the classroom. So that is another example of how I use my classroom environment positively in my school. Moving on to domain 3, classroom instruction. So in the past, I have done red dot, green dots with my students. You can see there's a picture of my students right here upholding red dots and green dots. Those dots are a formative assessment measurement for me to gauge how my students are performing on the current content. So they hold the dots right here in the center of their chest. It's so important for them to hold it in the center of their chest. That way nobody to their left, to their right, behind them can see what they're holding. And that gives me an idea how they're performing on that content. If they're showing a green dot, they're telling me that they understand. If they flip it over to the red side, then that tells me that I need to slow down just a little bit on my content. Most of the time, students are very honest with it because they know that nobody can see that dot other than me. I have never called a student out individually on them showing a red dot, and I think that is something that an educator has to do in order to build trust with those students. They're opening themselves up to be vulnerable by showing that red dot to you. You can't call them out on it and specifically target them. In the past, I have asked other students to help explain it, not to a specific student, but to the class in general, because sometimes my explanation of it just doesn't click with a student, so I need someone else's explanation of it. I've also asked the students to complete student surveys at the end of units or lessons. Here's one of the student surveys I had completed I had in my binder, so I still had that one. Just some very simple questions on what was some of your favorite strategies that we used throughout this lesson? Does the math content come easy to you traditionally? Does it come easy to you to understand? Was I respectful throughout the lesson? Different questions asked that kind of gauge my ability to instruct students. Domain 4, professional responsibilities. So in my district, I'm involved in several different ways. I am the district sponsor of our Pennies for Patients team. We raise money every year for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. The first year I sponsored this, we raised about $9,500. The second year I sponsored it, we raised $10,500. And this past school year, over $11,500 for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Here's a newspaper clipping of the article that we raised that much money. It was a check presentation from the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Outside of the Pennies for Patients, I'm a sponsor for our Relay for Life. I sponsor our middle school students who are participating, and they're hosting a team for the Relay for Life. All that money goes to the American Cancer Society. We have this every year, and we are able to raise approximately $10,000 each and every year for the American Cancer Society. Moving more towards educational professional responsibilities, I am the math tutor for grades 5 through 8. I'm also a homebound instructor, which means I conduct home visits for students who are unable to attend school, and I provide education to them and their home. Most recently this year, I've done a K-8 initiative for a PBIS program called Teamology. The Teamology was implemented in our school grades K through 8, and it's a program that tries to get students to behave more appropriately and display positive characteristics such as leadership, civil skills, the behaviors that we want our students to demonstrate inside and outside of the classroom. We focused on the classroom to begin with, and next year we plan on moving to common areas of our school. Outside of the school, I'm a volunteer firefighter. I'm also an EMT, so I work with our both EMS and our fire departments in the area. Through my teaching and my instruction and my professional responsibilities this past year, I was nominated by our district to be our Dr. Howard Jack Outstanding Educator Award 2020 for Washington County. I was nominated right before the end of February. I have not heard anything back from them yet. I don't know what's going on with the COVID-19 outbreak with that nomination for that award. Inside of our district also, I am a member of our SAP team and our district crisis intervention team. Throughout this course, I have not only learned how to become a supervisor of teachers, but I also have learned how to become a better educator. I do not necessarily know what my future holds this year, next year, 5 years down the road. However, this course has helped prepare me for whatever route that life takes me in. Before closing, I'd like to thank Dr. Longo for his work with this course and dedication to the University of Pittsburgh. I would also like to congratulate him on his retirement and best wishes as he enters into the next chapter of his life. I would like to choose to end with a quote from from Jack Welch, who's an American business executive, that truly parallels the meaning of this course. I quote, "Before you are a leader, success is all about growing yourself. When you become a leader, success is about growing others." Thank you very much, and thank you for the time.